Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 25th of March, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get back into it after a few days of no refuel. Actually, it was just only a couple of days, right? And I know today's episode is coming at you a bit later than usual. I'm actually recording it a bit later. It's a 12:15 right now for me, AM. I usually put them out at 12:30 AM, but this will probably won't go out until till later there. But yeah, so where have I been the last couple of days? Well, as you guys know, I was at Blockchain Australia. I did this day in Sydney on Tuesday and the day in Melbourne on Wednesday. In Sydney, I had a panel with Mehdi from Sigma Prime. That went really, really well. I had a lot of people coming up to me saying it was their favorite panel of the day, that they learned a lot. You know, Mehdi and I obviously talked a lot about kind of like ETH2 consensus layer merge stuff, and we bounced really well off of each other, which was awesome. I mean, we're both super passionate, obviously, about Ethereum and especially all the kind of like Ethereum core development going on and things like that. So that was a really great chat. I'm not sure where to find the recordings yet of all these sorts of things. I'm sure they'll be on YouTube eventually, but if you guys were able to kind of catch the live stream, we're actually at the event, you would have kind of like seen that talk, but hopefully when I find the links to it, I'll be able to kind of like link it to you. And on the second day, on the Wednesday, I closed out the day with Kane from Synthetics. We talked DeFi, we talked kind of like layer twos, talked alternative layer ones, all that sort of stuff there as well, which was a very, very fun conversation that we had there too. So yeah, the days themselves were really fun. I mean, I met a lot of people, met a lot of new people that didn't even know who I was as well, which was cool because I think people came up to me after my talk on the Tuesday and they really wanted to kind of like know who I was, know what I was doing, know how they could get my help on things, like especially in the education space, which is really exciting. This wasn't like a typical crypto conference. There were a lot of people there who were very new to crypto, a lot of people from government, from regular, like a lot of lawyers, a lot of people from the regulatory side, and it was interesting getting their perspectives on the different things going on, from kind of, in crypto, and them kind of like wanting to learn more about it so they can kind of go back to other people and kind of educate them. And as I said, I got approached by a fair few people who wanted my help with educating. So I'm going to see where those kind of leads lead me, essentially. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I was giving the, I guess, like panel with Mehdi around ETH2 and stuff like that, I think, as I've always said to you guys, I think most of this industry is perpetually behind by at least like a year on what's happening within the Ethereum ecosystem, and that goes for absolutely everything, and it goes for at most the core protocol stuff, right? Because a lot of it is very technical, a lot of it is very esoteric. You don't really care to know about it if it doesn't have a direct impact on ETH's value, right? And even when it does have a direct impact on ETH's value, a lot of people still don't know about it. Obviously, the merge has a massive impact, and a lot of people don't know that. So I think for me, what really opened my eyes is people were really interested in the technical stuff, but they needed explained to them to them in such a way where it's kind of from a high level, because I think a lot of the technical explanations tend to go very deep very quickly and they lose people. And I think also the delivery of the education is really important. Like for me, I try to give the delivery on the refuel as passionate as I can so that you guys can feel the passion I have for this sort of stuff and kind of like keep you guys engaged with this. But I know sometimes, some of the stuff I talk about can be a little boring, but I think when you're trying to read about this stuff, when you're listening to a lot of other people talk about this, it can be way less engaging. So I think that's what I've always prided myself on. The fact that I can give like education in a really passionate way, and that actually came across, it seems, for a lot of people as well. So, I mean, all in all, I had a ton of fun at this event. Like the last couple of days, I'm very much looking forward to Amsterdam now. I think, as I said, this was like I guess less of a kind of, it wasn't really an ETH conference, it was a crypto conference, but also there was a lot of new people there. I'm looking forward to going to Amsterdam because there's obviously going to be a lot of Ethereum people there, and it's going to be really cool. I'm giving a few different talks there and things like that as well, so that's going to be very exciting too. So hopefully some of you were able to make it to the event, and then I saw you there. I met a lot of people, so I don't remember everyone I met, and if you didn't make it, hopefully you were able to kind of like watch the streams as well. Everything was kind of like live streamed, and if I find the links to the videos, or if anyone else has them, please share them in the Discord. I know there's a lot of people kind of looking for them right now. All right, on to all the updates from the last few days that I've missed for you guys. So Danny Ryan put out the latest edition of the finalized blog post series. This is number 34, going over, I guess, the Kiln testnet and basically, everything that's happening on the merge side. So, I mean, I summarized this for you guys last week. There were obviously a couple of bugs in the Kiln testnet, the biggest one being the Prism bug client, which caused Prism to kind of like stop producing or start to produce invalid blocks and things like that. Now, because of that, there is a lot of testing that needs to happen, right? There's a ton of testing that still needs to happen. And as I mentioned on the last refuel, which I've seen a few people kind of like talk about this, but I don't think I said I didn't think that the June merge kind of like would still happen. I think maybe, July is still on the table, but June was kind of like off the table. I still think that, but there are certain other people saying that they could still see a June merge. We'll have to see. As I've said to you guys before, it's just a target window. I'm just giving my personal opinion based on kind of like the information that I'm seeing. And if it happens in June still, then good. I'm glad to be wrong. Like, I'm not trying to be right about this sort of stuff. I'm just trying to, get you guys the most direct, up-to-date information that I can. But as I've said before, I still think it's more likely to be July than June. And just because of the fact that the Kiln testnet didn't go, as flawless as possible, even though it went really, really well, it didn't go as flawless as possible. And there's still a lot of testing that needs to be done. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it in July or even August sort of thing. And as I said last time, I don't think these things are delays because there never was a kind of like date given, but I also think that no one's going to really care if it comes 2 to 3 months later than the projected kind of like date here. I really think that people underestimate like how much, crypto moves fast, but at the same time, there are periods where crypto moves really slow, in certain areas, and I don't think it's going to matter too much at the end of the day. So I guess go read this blog post. It's very, very short. It's got links to a bunch of other kind of like things as well to read, but definitely go read it. It'll be in the YouTube description. And on the merge as well, Terrence from the Pry Labs team has kind of like shared a screenshot of what happens when proof of stake gets activated on the Prism client. So you can see here, or the Prism validator client, you can see here that there are a couple of pandas kind of like made an ASCII code here, and proof of stake activated on the screenshot here. And I think the different validator clients will have different ways of displaying this information, which I'm really looking forward to each of them and seeing what they do. Because, this is only going to happen once, right? And this is a very, very big deal. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing my validators kind of like spit this ASCII out, depending on what they kind of do with it here. So very much looking forward to seeing that go forward there. Next up, we had an EOF ecosystem support program allocation update for Q3 and Q4 2021. This was a reminder about this. I think I covered it on the refuel when this came out on February 15th last month there. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because it's topical, right? There's been a lot of talk, I guess, over the last few days, especially about funding of things and core dev funding and all that sort of stuff. Now, what I wanted to talk about here is the Ethereum Foundation specifically. There was a bunch of discussions that we were having in the Discord channel today about what the Ethereum Foundation's burn rate is. Like, how much money are they spending each year out of their treasury? And there was a kind of like tweet that was brought up, I think, from 2019 or a comment from 2019 where someone gave the ballpark figure. I think it was Vitalik that the EF in 2019 was going to spend $25 million or something like that, right? Or $30 million in that year. I can't remember the exact figures. Now, if they were spending that much in 2019, which was obviously the depths of the bear market, there was a lot less going on in core developer land, then how much would they be spending in 2022? I projected that they would be spending anywhere from 50 to 100 million in 2022. Now, the EF Treasury, at least the public version, treasury that we can see, is about $1 billion worth of ETH. So let's just say, and I actually think it's more accurate to say that the EF is spending about $100 million in 2022, given the fact that they have a lot of grants programs going, like the EF Ecosystem Grants Program. They have a lot of other initiatives that they're doing, like the Client Incentive Program. They have a lot of people on their payroll. So let's say the EF has a $100 million run rate for just this year. Now they have fiat reserves, obviously, from cashing out ETH, but the ETH that they have left in their public treasury is worth about $1 billion. Now, let's say they keep ramping that up and they spend 150 million next year and 200 million the next year, right? It's probably going to keep ramping up. That doesn't leave them with that much money. Like, the treasury may seem large because you see it there. Okay, $1 billion is a lot of money. But then when you kind of like map out the run rate of the Ethereum Foundation, you kind of see that, okay, well, to manage that treasury well and to make sure it lasts, especially with all the stuff happening in the, and all the stuff that needs to be paid for in the Ethereum ecosystem, it can kind of run out relatively quickly. Now, then you dive deeper into that and you say, okay, well, what's this money being spent on individually? Is enough money going to core developers? All this sort of stuff. There's been a lot of discussions about this recently. And as I said in the Discord channel, I think it's kind of common knowledge that the Ethereum Foundation doesn't pay market rate and kind of like won't probably ever pay market rate for people, like core developers or otherwise, and they could probably make more money working in somewhere else in the ecosystem. But as I said in the Discord channel, I think for a lot of these people, like, money's important, but the reason they stay at the Ethereum Foundation instead of just going somewhere else is because the work that they're doing, to them at least, feels much more impactful, much more important to them than work that they could be doing elsewhere. And I think for people who don't have a passion and don't kind of like really care about the work that they do, they struggle to understand this. Because a lot of people, at the end of the day, like out, inside and outside of crypto, they're just going to work a job for the money, and that's totally fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But unless you actually work for more than money, you won't understand why people would take a pay cut or take like less money than they could get elsewhere to work on more impactful stuff. I did this when I joined a crypto job in 2019 at Set Protocol. I took a pay cut from my previous job. That's because at my previous job, I kind of like hated it. I wasn't doing the work that I wanted to be doing at all. It wasn't a crypto job or anything like that. And then I joined Set and it was amazing. Like, I would have worked for even less than what I was on because it was just so good. I didn't even care about the money at that point. And that was a point where I didn't have a large crypto portfolio. This was 2019, guys. Like, I definitely did not have a large crypto portfolio. But for me personally, I was very, very happy at that point. Like, I was just as happy as I am now, to be honest, right? And that's because I was doing the work that I felt had a lot of impact. I was very interested in the work. It was very exciting for me. Now, I stayed there for about 18 months, and then I kind of like left because I'm like, I want to focus on doing more stuff with the Daily Gwei. I want to focus on doing more kind of like angel investing, helping teams out in the early stages, doing advising, all that sort of stuff. And I still do that to this day, right? It's been over a year since I kind of like left Set, and I'm still doing this to this day because that's what I find to be the most impactful work that I can do. And I do all the Daily Gwei stuff for free because I'm able to do that, but also because like I just love doing the refuel. I love doing the newsletter. I love kind of talking in the Discord channel with you guys. And I think that translates to a lot of people. Like, a lot of the core developers in Ethereum, they love what they do. They feel like they're making so much impact. Like, how often in technology in the world, in your life, are you going to be able to work directly on something as impactful as the Ethereum core protocol? Not very often, right? And I think a lot of these people are just concerned with making sure that they can cover their bills and they're kind of like getting paid what they consider to be a fair compensation, even if it's not market rate, and they're fine with that. They're just going to do all their work, and they're fun. They're having fun with that, and that's totally on them. Like, no one's forcing them to work for less pay. Like, I'm telling you right now, guys, every single Ethereum core developer could easily get a job anywhere else they wanted in this ecosystem, and probably for more pay. But there's a reason that they're not doing that. Obviously, there's more than just like them working on impactful stuff. They have a loyalty to Ethereum, and that plays into it, of course, and stuff like that. But there's a reason there. And I know, Peter's been very loud from the Geth team recently, and and kind of like people are thinking that he might jump ship over to Avalanche. Maybe he will, right? But I think in Peter's case, as I said last time, that money's one side of it, but there's also the side of like burnout, right? Like, a lot of these people have been working on this stuff for a very long time, and they just want to change. They're just burnt out, and that's totally fine too. Like, we shouldn't expect someone to stay in the same role for bloody, 20 years of their life. Like, there's a lot of people who just, especially the ones who are passionate about their work and want to do impactful work, they just get burnt out and they want to change. And that's totally fine as well. So I guess that's kind of like my perspective on this whole kind of like funding debate and things like that. I really do think people need to see the other side of this and see that at the end of the day, maybe you want to just do stuff for money. Maybe money's everything to you at this stage in your life, and that's totally fine. But for a lot of other people, there are things that matter to them way more than money, and money is really just a tool. And if they've got enough money coming in that they can pay their bills, they can live their life in kind of like comfort wherever they are, they're happy doing that. Not everyone wants to buy a Lambo. Not everyone wants to buy luxury, items. Not everyone wants to live in a fancy house. A lot of people just want to be able to live comfortably, and by live comfortably, I mean pay their bills without worrying about them, and kind of like be able to kind of afford some luxuries here and there, of course, obviously, but most people don't and help their families too, right? But most people don't want to kind of like go and buy Lambos and luxury items and stuff like that. They would rather do much more impactful work than that there. So yeah, anyway, going to move on from that to the next update, which came, Chloe White here, who I actually met at Blockchain Australia in real life. She shared something today about ANZ, the Australian New Zealand kind of like bank in Australia here, one of the top 4 banks, has issued the first Australia dollar stablecoin called the $ADC, which is a weird ticker for a stablecoin. I thought initially it was a play on AC/DC, which is obviously a very popular rock band that came out of Australia, but I'm not sure. It might be that, but yeah, it's called $ADC. And here Chloe lists like, how did ANZ do it? Well, they have a counterparty with zero cap with which Australia's only full-service crypto platform. They have custody via Fireblocks. They did an audit with OpenZeppelin. They're doing AML with chain analysis, and they used the Ethereum blockchain. That's why I'm talking about it, right? This is pretty cool. I mean, obviously, we're all about going bankless and trying to disrupt banks and all that sort of stuff. I'll be honest, guys, I don't think banks are really going anywhere. I think banks will adapt pretty quickly to a crypto world. I've always said that I think that the real innovation of DeFi and of crypto is that it gives users a choice. We no longer have to use a bank, right, to do these sorts of things. We can do it on our own. But the banks are still going to be there. People are going to want to use banks. There's plenty of people who don't want to manage their own finances, and they shouldn't have to if they don't want to. And there's always going to be services available for them, whether they be banks or other kind of financial services. So that's why it's really cool to see that, you know, there's a bank here like ANZ getting involved with this. And as I've said before, like other banks like Combank or Commonwealth Bank in Australia have been very progressive with crypto. They announced that they were going to enable crypto trading on their platform. That was supposed to happen in Q1 this year. I mean, we're at the tail end of Q1 now, and I haven't heard anything about that. Obviously, banks move slower than anything, so that's still probably coming. But I don't think it's going to be to be in Q1. But I also heard a stat that I think 900,000 of the Commonwealth Bank's kind of like customers had sent money from their bank accounts to a crypto exchange. And just to contextualize it here, guys, Australia's population is only 25 million, and only the people over 18 really like have a bank account, right? So you can discount like all the children, all the babies, all that sort of stuff, and a lot of the teenagers, and just count the adult population. And this was just Commonwealth Bank. As I said, there's 4 major banks in Australia, and there's a bunch of other banks as well. So that's not 900,000. That's a lot of people when you kind of like contextualize it like that. So I think that stuff's coming, and I think, you know, ANZ doing these kind of like stable coins and Australian dollar stable coins as well is really cool. It just shows that they're really looking at this sort of stuff and they're dabbling in it. So cool to see that from ANZ. All right, so Element Finance announced the first step toward decentralization by opening up applications for delegates and members of the Governance Steering Council. So there's a thread here about this, and there's also a blog post. Very cool to see this. I mean, this does mean that I assume this means a token is coming. Disclosure: I'm an angel investor in Element Finance, but I haven't heard anything about a token or anything like that. But to actually decentralize and to have like a delegate governance system and all that sort of stuff, you need a token, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious. So just some alpha to pay attention to. Maybe there's going to be an airdrop. I'm not sure. As I said, like I am an angel investor, but I have no access to information about this sort of stuff. Like I don't know what's happening there. I'm just assuming that since they're trying to decentralize, there is going to be a token. But I think it's really cool when I see something trying to create like a DAO for itself, but also doing something different to the traditional DAOs. Like there's actually a lot of discussions at the Blockchain Week about DAOs. And I talked to a lot of people about how I think that DAOs have a massive issue in that a lot of them try to be like super decentralized from day one, and they have like a leadership void that usually gets filled by the wrong people. Some of them are really just multi-sigs, you know, decentralization theater. Some of them don't put any effort into actually decentralizing, and it ends up just being a complete mess, and the project fails because of that. But I think Element Finance has actually put a lot of effort and a lot of work into this. They're doing it the right way. They're doing it relatively slowly. They're not just trying to go way into it. You know, they haven't even issued or announced a token yet, but they're already doing kind of like delegate call for delegates and members of kind of like the Governance Steering Council, which is the GSC here. So yeah, I mean, I highly recommend giving this blog post a read to learn more about this, but I thought this is really cool, and they're kind of like one of the better, I guess, structures that I've seen in the DAO space recently. All right, so Pseudotheos is back with another banger thread. This is all about ZK EVMs and why it is a massive breakthrough for Ethereum scaling. Now, if you're not following Pseudotheos, be sure to do so. This is an up-and-coming kind of like person that I've spoken about a lot recently on the Refuel. You know, I kind of like always look for these kind of like people. Polynail was one, obviously Pseudotheos is another, and I love seeing them because they just put together such amazing information in really digestible formats, and this is just another kind of like one. And this thread isn't actually very long here. This is actually just a few tweets, so definitely go give this a read. I just wanted to highlight it for you guys. It'll be linked in the YouTube description for you to do so. But yeah, Pseudotheos is a banger follow, so definitely go give them a follow there. All right, so Jerry's son here, who works in research at Masari, put together a thread on Polygon. So he starts off the thread by saying, many know Polygon for its sidechain, or the POS chain as I like to call it, cheap gas fees, fast transaction throughput, all the good stuff. But beyond that sidechain, the company is building a suite of layer 2 and infrastructure products as well, and you'll 100% be hearing more about it over the coming months. Then he goes on to explain why over 12 tweet threads here. Now, obviously, you guys know I'm an advisor to Polygon, so I talk about them a lot on the Refuel, but they're doing a lot of great work. I mean, Masari has a whole thing here. And they have an image here. You can see Polygon's kind of like product stack and all the products that they're building. So much going on. Like just on the L2 side alone is just plenty going on here. Polygon Hermes, Maiden, Nightfall, and Zero. So much going on. And then you can kind of like scroll down and he kind of explains all of this, explains each of these solutions. But what he also goes on about is talks about is kind of like the Matic token as well in the report here. You can see on Masari. I don't want to talk about the token too much because obviously I have a lot of conflict of interest here being an advisor. Obviously hold Matic tokens, just super disclosure there. But in this report, they talk about the Matic token, which doesn't get talked about that much, and I highly recommend giving it a read because it's actually pretty interesting about how the Matic token will go beyond the POS chain and what it's actually going to evolve into, revamping the tokenomics, all that sort of stuff there. But I won't talk about too much about that because of my conflicts of interest there. I want you to go read this blog post if you want to get that alpha and read this thread from Jerry's son. Of course, this will be linked in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so Optimism has a blog post out today called Ether's Phoenix, which is taking a step back from the optimizations and protocol minutiae to ruminate on coordination, public goods funding, and where Optimism fits in. Now, you guys will know, or some of you will know, that about Optimism's retroactive public goods funding initiative, where they basically give all of the profits from their centralized sequencer to public goods in a retroactive way. And they're talking about kind of like summoning, the Ether's Phoenix here. The angel who rewards you for summoning it, a kind of reverse Rocco's Basilisk. And I mean, this is all about, I was talking about funding before, but all about doing public goods funding in a more efficient and effective way. I highly recommend reading this blog post. It's pretty short here, but the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I've been talking a lot about funding recently and about how we need more public goods funding. There's obviously the Protocol Guild, which all of you should have donated to on Gitcoin grants. I think Gitcoin grants matching round is pretty much ended now by the time you will have watched this, but there's so much going on in the funding space right now, guys. And just a refresher on what the Protocol Guild is, they're trying to get projects to kind of like donate to this kind of Protocol Guild, like a portion of their treasury, in order to kind of like give back to the core developers and other kind of like interested parties in that arena there. And they're aiming to raise a lot of money. They're trying to get this Protocol Guild to like 7, 8, 9 figures, potentially 10 figures one day, right? And kind of give a portion of that. Sorry, trying to kind of give all of that to public goods. And then you have Optimism doing this with the retroactive public goods funding. There's just a lot going on, and I recommend reading this blog post for more context around that as well. All right, so there's been a bit of confusion lately about GameStop and what they're doing in the NFT space. They've obviously announced partnerships with two L2s, Immutable X and Loopring here, but Immutable X put out a thread today about how their partnership is going to go with GameStop, basically building a marketplace, all that sort of stuff. And they also mentioned like how Loopring is working with GameStop as well, but it's not kind of, I guess, a zero-sum thing here. GameStop is working with both of these solutions. There's going to be things happening on both of them, and I think that's why Immutable has put out this thread, because there was a bit of confusion around this, I think. So yeah, definitely give this thread a read if you were confused about why GameStop is working with both Immutable and Loopring. There are reasons for both, and there are things being done on both ends there as well. All right, so Arbitrum shared a tweet a couple of days ago about the Arbitrum sequencer being a top spender on Ethereum over the past 24 hours. You can see here that they spent in the last 24 hours at time of this screenshot was $64,000 or 21.6 ETH here, which is, I think, 0.6% of the total Ethereum network. Now, as I said to you guys before, Layer 2s are eventually going to take over pretty much all of the Ethereum Layer 1 block space. Probably won't happen for a little while still, but we're going to replace all of Ethereum L1 kind of like transactions with just L2 proofs and and call data, which will take up all the block space and basically be responsible for all the fee revenue being generated on Ethereum L1. So I just wanted to kind of highlight this tweet here because I've been talking about this a lot on the Refuel over the past, it's been a while now. It's been probably a year at this point where I've been talking about this kind of like phenomenon that's going to happen. But to see it kind of like happening in such a big way, and to see kind of like the Arbitrum sequencer and other L2 sequences paying L1 and actually doing what we said it was going to do is really, really cool. So kind of just wanted to highlight that for you guys there. All right, speaking of Optimism and their optimizations that are coming to their network, their call data compression is actually going live on mainnet this Thursday, guys, which is today. It is. It's Thursday today, right? So if this is going live today, it may or may not be live by the time you watch this video, but this means that fees on Optimism are coming down pretty quickly, I think. Pretty significantly because of call data compression. I remember they got about 40% 40% reduction in fees here. So that's actually huge. I don't know what the fees are right now. If I bring up l2fees.info right now and I check like the Optimism swap fee is at 51 cents. So if they're gonna let's say they actually do reduce it by 40%, right? That's coming down to 30 cents, guys. So we're going from 51 cents to 30 cents just from this optimization alone for a swap, and it's going to even keep coming down even further than that due to more optimizations coming and also the future EIPs that are coming as well. So like layer 2 transactions are just so cheap, right? And this is Gwei is at 40 right now. So when Gwei was at 20, it would have been even cheaper than that. God, it's just it's amazing to see like how quickly the L2s are getting cheaper and cheaper, and the L1s are actually the alternative L1s are actually getting more expensive. The cheap ones that have been kind of like talking about how they're like super cheap, they have super cheap fees, they're actually getting more expensive because of the fact that they don't have what the L2s have, which is the magic of basically being much more scalable, being able to kind of like do all these optimizations without kind of like sacrificing security or decentralization because they inherit all of that from Ethereum layer 1. Really is just the beauty of L2s coming to fruition here. I'm super excited to see this continuing to evolve and continuing to see more optimizations come to the network here. All right, finally here we have GitPOAP, which is an announcement here from them saying that they're going to be launching on April 7th. So open source contributors, get ready to claim some of your POAPs here. You can go to check out this blog post and kind of like this, explains what GitPOAP is here. So the one-liner is GitPOAP exists to memorialize software contributors as contributions as POAPs. We're beginning by building a platform for minting POAPs based on GitHub activity. Our inspiration for building GitPOAP comes from wanting to solve challenges of recognition and reputation building that we've experienced firsthand as open source developers and maintainers. So go and I guess like read this blog post for more information about this. I think this is a really, really cool kind of like project. I love anything got to do with POAP, to be honest. Like it's such an awesome project. There's such an awesome community. There's such an awesome community as part of the POAP community. And there's so much going on this front, and there's so much going on in the identity space, just in general. It's just cool. And they're also kind of like hiring here. So if you're interested in being any of these people, community and social, strategy and operations, design, or engineering, you can definitely check out this blog post for links to all of that as well. As I've said plenty of times to you guys, like everyone in crypto is hiring, but I think you shouldn't take a shotgun approach. I think you should take a targeted approach as well and kind of look for teams that you actually want to work for. Because as I said earlier, like working on something that you love is way more important than anything else, unless you're just in something for the money. If you're just in something for the money, then you wouldn't probably care where you work. But if you do, if you want to have impact, if you want to do something that's really, really cool, GitPOAP is definitely a cool team to work for. So definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you. I think that's it. I know I had a couple of days to cover here. I think I covered most of the things that kind of like happened over the past couple of days, and I may sound more tired than usual. That's because, as I said, I'm recording this later than usual, and I'm still recovering from the conference. It's funny because like the flight was only like an hour or so to Sydney and then an hour or so back to Melbourne, but it was the first time I'd been on a plane since COVID, and it's the first time I'd properly traveled since kind of like COVID happened, so basically over 2 years. And it's just for some reason made me like super tired, super run down. So hopefully I didn't sound too tired on the refuel today, but and hopefully I'll be back into the swing of things tomorrow properly there. But on that note, I'm going to end it today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.